This is Smart Sleep Lab. Today's theme is apples. Please listen until you relax and feel sleepy. Is America the true home of the apple? The secrets of the wild forests hidden in Central Asia. While the apple is considered a symbol of America, its roots actually lie in Kazakhstan in Central Asia. Located at the foot of the Tian Shan Mountains, Almaty, the former capital, even has its name meaning Father of Apples. Amazingly, even today, young apple trees sometimes sprout from cracks in the city's asphalt. In this area, vast forests of wild Malacivacea, the direct ancestor of modern apples, remain. Thousands of years ago, forest bears picked out sweet apples, ate them, and carried seeds. Despite the lack of selective breeding, surprisingly sweet and large apples naturally emerged. This is the long-standing story of the apple's journey across the world via the Silk Road. Are apple seeds adventurers traveling? Inside the stomach, incredible distances traveled and their survival strategies. Apple seeds are smooth, hard, and teardrop-shaped. This evolutionary advance allows them to survive even when eaten by animals, escaping gastric juices and safely excreting. The seeds continue their long journey, undigested within the animal's stomach. One study astonished a seed eaten by a horse, traveling approximately 64 kilometers in just one day. Larger animals like bears and deer also enjoy apples, playing the important role of seed carriers, transporting seeds far and wide. Apple trees, unable to move on their own, rely on the help of other animals to pass on the baton of life to new lands far from their homeland. Each apple we hold in our hands carries the memory of such a long journey. Why delicious apples won't taste the same, even if you plant them from seeds. The miraculous flavor preserved through grafting. Even if you plant a delicious apple seed, the fruit won't taste the same as its parent. This is because apples have a highly diverse set of genes known as heterozygosity, meaning that when grown from seed, they will have completely different personalities from their parents. Just as each human sibling is unique, each apple is born as a new life. Sowing commercially available apple seeds often produces small, sour apples with a strong wild character. The specific varieties we eat are cloned, preserving their flavor through a process known as grafting, in which a branch is grafted onto another tree rather than from seed. The infinite possibilities hidden within a single seed are truly a lottery of life created by nature. The magic of grafting, a 3,000-year-old cloning technique. The only way to 100% reproduce the delicious taste of apples and preserve them for future generations is through grafting. Grafting is a technique that harnesses the plant's regenerative ability by grafting a branch of a specific variety onto a rootstock or base of another tree. This technique has an astonishingly long history, having been practiced in China and ancient Babylonia for over 3,000 years. In other words, the apples we eat today are living clones that have been passed down for thousands of years. Without human wisdom, which preserves life through branches rather than seeds, the bountiful cuisine of today may not exist. The story of the flavor that unfolds from a single branch continues quietly in orchards around the world. Was the golden apple of Greek myth a different fruit? The surprising truth hidden in the word. The ancient Greek word melon does not refer to the modern-day melon. At the time, this single word referred to almost all round fruit that grows on trees. As a result, it has been suggested that the numerous legendary apples that appear in Greek mythology may not actually be apples but other fruits. For example, the forbidden fruit eaten by Adam and Eve is believed to have been a fig or pomegranate, while the golden apple that sparked their conflict is believed to have been a quince or apricot, which existed at the time. This mythological scene has been misunderstood for centuries due to its confusing name. Changing the definition of a word may also allow the landscape of history to take on a different color. The world's oldest beauty contest, the Apple of Discord, that sparked the Trojan War. Greek mythology tells of a single apple that destroyed an entire country. A golden apple was thrown into a banquet with the words "to the most beautiful goddess" inscribed on it. A fierce battle ensued between the highest-ranking goddess, Hera, the goddess of wisdom, Athena, and the goddess of beauty, Aphrodite. The judgment of Paris, a human tasked with judging this world's oldest beauty contest, would eventually spark a historic event, the Trojan War. Even if the apple itself was a different fruit than modern-day apples, the apple's presence as a symbol of both sweet temptation and discord remains unchanged. Always end your meal with an apple. The phrase, "from beginning to end," has been passed down since ancient Rome. Apples were an essential part of the ancient Roman dining table. According to the poet Horace, a typical Roman full-course meal began with an egg appetizer and concluded with a fruit dessert, especially an apple. This gave rise to the unique Latin phrase ab ovo usque ad mala, meaning from beginning to end. Perhaps our modern-day custom of enjoying dessert at the end of a full-course meal can be traced back to this era. Ending your day with the refreshing aroma of apples. Fall asleep peacefully tonight, reminiscing about this simple bliss of ancient people. A sanctuary saved from extinction, the apple fire protected within monastery walls. After the fall of the glorious Roman Empire, Europe entered a period of turmoil, and many agricultural techniques were on the verge of being lost. Amidst this, monasteries scattered across the region secretly preserved apple cultivation knowledge. For monks living self-sufficient lives, secluded from the secular world, cultivating orchards was a vital task, akin to prayer. In quiet courtyards surrounded by high walls, they honed their grafting techniques and carefully preserved hundreds of varieties. It is thanks to the quiet passion of the monks who kept the flame of life alive during dark times that we can enjoy a wide variety of apples today. The apple which spread once again from within its walls to the world truly is a symbol of wisdom. The apple evolved at the crossroads of knowledge, the pinnacle of horticulture, protected and cultivated during the Islamic Golden Age. While medieval Europe was shrouded in the shadow of war, the Islamic world saw the blossoming of scholarship and art centered around the houses of wisdom. They not only preserved the botany of ancient Greece and Rome, but also combined it with advanced irrigation techniques and soil science, elevating horticulture to a scientific discipline. Through the vast Islamic network, rare fruit trees from the East and the latest cultivation methods were shared one after another. It is no exaggeration to say that the foundations of sophisticated grafting and breeding techniques still found in orchards around the world were honed by Islamic scholars of this period. The light of intellect, which shone during a dark age, carefully sealed its sweetness and knowledge in the apple. pinch hitter who saved the vineyards from crisis, the turning point in history that transformed South Africa into an apple powerhouse. At the end of the 19th century, South African vineyards were devastated by an invasion of a small pest called phylloxera. Faced with a generation-old winemaking tradition at risk, farmers made the difficult decision to replant apple trees. This unexpected challenge was a perfect match for South Africa's climate. Today, South Africa is known as one of the world's leading apple export centers, and vast orchards adorn the land. Ironically, the once desperate pest crisis became the catalyst that propelled the country to become a new leader in the fruit industry. This is a story of reversal. A single apple tree saved the fate and dinner tables of a nation. The Apple Island began with a single ship. The story of 3 saplings that adorn Tasmania. Tasmania, an island south of Australia, was once known worldwide as the Apple Island. Its history dates back to 1788, when Captain Bligh of the infamous battleship HMS Bounty landed here, and a botanist on board planted just 3 saplings and seeds. This small hope grew miraculously in Tasmania's cool, pure climate, eventually transforming into a vast orchard covering the entire island. At one time, it boasted enough production to meet the world's demand for apples. And even today, its quality is said to be the best in the world. The miracle that began with 3 saplings continues to shape the island's beautiful landscape. Was a baseball once called an apple? The apple's presence in the history of language. In the past, the English word apple did not refer to a specific fruit. When a new fruit or vegetable was discovered, it was customary to call it apple until a name was decided. For example, in the Middle Ages, bananas were called apples of paradise, and tomatoes apples of love. What is surprising is 19th century America. At the time, even baseballs were called apples, a term of endearment and affection for their shape. Apples were so deeply rooted in people's lives that they became synonymous with something round and adorable. Unraveling the history of the word reveals that the world was filled with apples more than we might imagine. Was the forbidden fruit not an apple? The hidden truth and the language trap that the Bible omits. When we think of the forbidden fruit that Adam and Eve ate, we imagine a bright red apple. however, the original Hebrew text of the Bible does not mention a specific fruit, simply referring to it as fruit. It wasn't until later translations into Latin that this fruit became firmly established as an apple. It is said that scholars of the time interpreted the fruit of the tree of knowledge as an apple because the Latin words Mars, meaning evil, and maron, meaning apple, sound similar. There is also a strong belief that it was a fig or pomegranate, and the image we believe may actually be a grand misunderstanding born out of wordplay. Why is the apple a symbol of temptation? The hidden magic of the fruit that stirs the senses. There is a clear reason why apples have become so well established as a symbol of temptation. Their vibrant red color evokes passion and blood. Their lustrous gold symbolizes fertility and wealth, and their soft, round shape evokes life and fertility. Furthermore, the mellow aroma that spreads once one tastes them and their rich, carnal sweetness captivate human desire. All of these elements combine to make the apple more than just a fruit. It embodies wisdom, sin, and luscious temptation. When we are captivated by the red of an apple, perhaps we can sense the irresistible magic that has captivated humanity for millennia. Are apple seeds prophets of love, the bittersweet history of love fortune, dating back to ancient Greece? Apples have long been used as a special tool to predict the future of love. In ancient Greece, it was believed that if a woman thought of her beloved and spat an apple seed toward the ceiling, her love would be fulfilled if it successfully stuck. Belgian women also had a custom of placing a seed in a hot frying pan and using the way it popped to predict their future husband. Rather than simply eating apples, these women entrusted their destinies to each and everyone. Perhaps because apples were a symbol of seduction and beauty, people believed they possessed mysterious magical powers. Why not take a moment to immerse yourself in the love of the people of the past, whose hearts were filled with joy and sorrow at the sound of the tiny seeds bouncing? A symbol of fertility, nurturing life, prayers for new life are made under the apple tree. Because of their bountiful fruit, apples have long been cherished around the world as a symbol of fertility and prosperity. In Kyrgyzstan, Central Asia, a mysterious ritual still lingers today in which women hoping for a child roll under an apple tree to receive the earth's vitality. At weddings in Montenegro, brides are said to toss apples onto the roofs of their new homes, praying for the prosperity of their descendants. The round fruit embodies a wish for a healthy life. Apples are more than just food. They also represent family happiness and a guardianship of life, watching over the baton of life that is passed on to the next generation. Their refreshing fragrance embodies hope for the future, a tradition woven by people since ancient times. A magic star lurks in the cross-section of an apple, the bond between science and mysticism, forged by a pentagram. Did you know that when you cut an apple horizontally in half, 5 cavities form a star in the center? The perfectly symmetrical pentagram that encases the seed has long been considered an important symbol in occult studies, symbolizing the harmony of nature and the 5 elements. For this reason, apples have long been regarded as magical fruits, symbolizing magic, superstition, and even hidden knowledge. Botanically, the shape is merely a coincidence of the number 5 found in plants of the Rosaceae family. However, the secret star hidden within the bright red fruit continues to stimulate our imagination, adding a touch of mystery to everyday scenes. Does it save even the gods from aging? The golden apple of youth in Norse mythology. In the world of Norse mythology, a mysterious fruit appears that sustains the youth of the gods. This golden apple is guarded by Idun, the goddess of spring. Whenever the Aesir gods felt old, they would take a bite of this apple to regain eternal life and radiance. One day, the apple was stolen by the evil god Loki through his machinations. The once invincible god's hair instantly turned gray, and they rapidly aged. For the gods, losing the apple was the very fear of death. The apple was a magic elixir that preserved youth and beauty forever. The lustrous, fresh skin of the apple reflects the aspirational longing for immortality, a dream that people have had since ancient times. Memories of apples etched on maps, traces of apple villages hidden in British place names. Spread out a map of Britain and you'll find traces of apples everywhere. To the Celts and Anglo-Saxons, apples were a sacred fruit essential to survival. Proving their importance, there are at least 40 place names in Britain that include apple, such as Appleby and Appledren. These locations tell of the sites of lush orchards and villages that prospered through the apple trade. They are evidence that apples have been a part of people's lives for thousands of years. When we call the names of old castles and villages, we still evoke in our words the scent of apples beloved by our distant ancestors. The truth about the hero William Tell was the apple on his son's head just a legend? The Swiss hero William Tell brilliantly shoots down an apple placed on his son's head with an arrow. This story is passed down as a symbol of freedom and courage, but it actually hides a surprising truth. Historians have found no evidence to prove Tell's existence, and the prevailing theory is that this episode itself is fiction based on an old legend from ancient Scandinavia. Even if it is just a story, there is great significance in choosing something as familiar as an apple as a symbol of courage to stand up to a tyrant. In this legend, the apple continues to inspire indomitable spirit in people's hearts even today. Bringing the magic of apples to the American wilderness, Johnny Appleseed, the saint who continued to sow seeds. In 19th century America, there was a man who walked barefoot through the wilderness, sowing apple seeds wherever he went. His name was John Chapman, affectionately known by his neighbors as Johnny Appleseed. He didn't just sow seeds. He established apple nurseries across the country and taught pioneers how to grow apples. Thanks to his dedication, hundreds of new apple varieties sprouted across America, providing both physical and mental support for those living the difficult life of the frontier. This is the story of a man who loved nature and planted trees for the future, without expecting anything in return. The seeds sown by one man have grown into vast apple orchards that still thrive in the American landscape. The unexpected connection between an action hero and a fruit, the apple that gave the movie Rambo its name. Rambo is the indomitable hero played by Sylvester Stallone. Did you know that his powerful name actually came from a single apple? One day, while original author David Morrell was thinking of a name for the story's protagonist, he was captivated by the powerful yet beautiful sounding name of an apple his wife brought home. That variety was the Rambo apple. He knew at that moment that this was it, and a name that will go down in film history was born. A lone warrior fighting in the middle of a battlefield, and a juicy apple. The fact that these two seemingly polar opposites were brought together by a chance encounter is a fascinating twist of history. a living time capsule preserving the memory of gravity. Newton's apple spreads around the world. The story of Isaac Newton, who was inspired to discover the law of gravity after seeing an apple fall from a tree, is told through a story. The legendary tree that inspired this inspiration actually lives on today as clones around the world. The original tree, which grew in his family's garden in England, was carefully grafted after being knocked down in a storm, and its descendants have been planted in research facilities around the world, including the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in the United States and Koishikawa Botanical Garden in Japan. The sight of the tree still bearing its fruit centuries later is a symbol of human intellectual curiosity. Within each apple we hold, the wind that unraveled the truth of the universe and the passion of those who seek to connect this wisdom still reside quietly. The Big Apple, symbolizing its skyscrapers, is the nickname given to the city by those who dreamed of achieving great things. New York, the world's most energetic city, has its roots in the world of horse racing in the 19th century. At the time, jockeys nicknamed the Big Apple for New York's large racetracks, where big money and prestige could be won as the greatest reward everyone coveted. At the time, apples were the ultimate treat for horses, and the term was used as slang for the greatest reward or a great opportunity. This term spread through newspaper columns and eventually came to symbolize the charm of the entire city. A sweet, juicy, and large fruit that everyone wants to bite into. What was once a buzzword has now become the name of the ultimate destination for those pursuing their dreams. A single bite changed the world. Wisdom and playfulness inscribed in Apple's logo. One of the world's most famous logos is Apple's bitten apple. This missing bite has two meanings. One is a symbol of the fruit of the tree of knowledge that Adam and Eve ate. The other is a clever play on words, combining the computer unit of information, bite, with the English word bito, meaning to take a bite. From a design perspective, there is also a practical reason for the bite. To avoid being mistaken for a cherry, even when it is reduced to a small icon. It represents a thirst for wisdom and a playful rationality. This small bite signaled the beginning of a revolution that reshaped our digital lives. Golden drops safer than water. Cider sustained people's lives and thirst. In the past, in Europe and America, apples were more important than food. They were a vital drink. At the time, clean water was difficult to obtain, and drinking raw water always carried the risk of illness. So people turned to cider, an alcoholic beverage made from fermented apples. Containing a trace amount of alcohol, cider is far safer and more shelf-stable than water, making it a true drink of life. People of all ages sipped on these golden drops daily to quench their thirst. Behind the careful cultivation of apple trees across the country lies a profound wisdom: to quench people's thirst and protect their health. Golden currency in a barrel. Frontier, America, where cider ran society. In the early days of the nation, cider, an apple liquor, wasn't just a drink. Barrels of cider circulated as a currency with the same value as money. Everything from buying new clothes and livestock to paying for children's school fees was paid for with these mellow apple drops. In frontier areas where cash was extremely scarce, cider, coveted by everyone, and with its stable value, was the most reliable means of exchange. Perhaps people diligently planted and harvested apples because it represented the wealth they needed to survive tomorrow. Apples were truly gold, gushing from the earth. The golden cup beloved by the founding fathers, the inseparable story of American presidents and cider. The presidents who pioneered American history were also deeply captivated by the allure of apples. The first president, George Washington, was a master cider maker who ran his own large brewery. The second president, John Adams, is said to have drank a mug of cider every morning as a key to his health. Furthermore, the third president, Thomas Jefferson, was so passionate about the taste that he constantly researched the best cider. Perhaps a golden apple drop was always in his hand as he discussed the nation's future. The mellow aroma beloved by the founding fathers also symbolized a new world filled with freedom and hope. The disappearance of alcohol and the transformation of cider. Prohibition rewrote the history of apples. Once beloved as a drink safer than water, cider's fate changed dramatically with the temperance movement that began in the 19th century in America. Labeled an immoral strong drink by people who valued purity, cider faced such headwinds that orchards across the country were cut down. As a result, the only way to survive was to create an alcohol-free juice without additives. Even today, in America, cider refers to cloudy, fresh apple juice, a vestige of that turbulent time. The scars of history etched in the word still live quietly in our glasses. The balancing fruit preached by the father of medicine, the wisdom of apples that supported health in ancient Rome. The great 2nd century physician Galen believed that health was a state in which the 4 fluids in the body were in balance. In this humor theory, apples were considered a special food with cooling and moistening properties that gently cooled and hydrated the body. For example, when eating red meat, which has the heat's property that heats the body, apples served as a kind of medicine to balance that. While apples are now commonly found on dinner tables for the people of ancient Rome, they were also a prescription from nature to calm excess heat and restore harmony to life. Their freshness has continued to gently soothe our bodies since ancient times. Were apples once a dangerous fruit? The freshness of raw apples was feared in medieval Europe. While apples are synonymous with health in modern times, in medieval Europe, it was strongly believed that eating them raw would bring on a terrible illness. Medical beliefs at the time held that raw fruit could remove heat from the body, causing stomach upset and a serious illness. Raw apples were strictly prohibited, especially for children and nurses with weak digestion. For this reason, to be on the safe side, people always cooked them, adding plenty of warming spices and sugar to counteract the coldness before serving them at the table. The crunchy texture we now enjoy may have been a forbidden, life-threatening sensation for people of the past. The fruit of life that transcends rough seas. Captain Cook entrusted his hopes for his voyage to apples. The age of discovery began in the 15th century. For sailors venturing into uncharted waters, their greatest enemy was not storms or monsters, but the dreaded disease, scurvy, caused by a lack of vitamin C. As many lives were lost, the renowned explorer, Captain Cook, came up with a clever solution. He loaded large quantities of apples and apple products onto his ship and actively encouraged his crew to eat them, successfully protecting them from the incurable disease. The nutrients contained in apples served as a living medicine on the harsh seas and became the driving force behind greatly expanding the sphere of human activity. The courage to venture beyond the horizon always had a reassuring traveling companion by his side, the apple. The magic that transformed fear into sweetness. The spread of sugar opened the door to raw apples. The 16th century saw a dramatic change in the European diet. The widespread use of sugar at that time changed the people's perception of raw apples, which had previously been feared as disease-inducing. First, the practice of safely processing fruit into candied fruits and jam spread. As people repeatedly experienced this sweetness, they gradually began to appreciate the inherent deliciousness of fruit itself, and their deep-rooted fears about eating it raw melted away. As if cast under a sweet spell, the former taboo was transformed into bliss. The reason we can now safely stuff our mouths with fresh apples is thanks to the contribution of sugar, the sweet leader. A brilliant strategy hidden in a proverb. The catchphrase that saved apple farmers, "An apple a day keeps the doctor away." This health proverb, beloved around the world, has a surprising backstory. It was actually a catchphrase coined by apple farmers at the St. Louis World's Fair in the early 20th century. At the time, the temperance movement had caused a sharp decline in demand for alcohol, putting farmers in a difficult position. So they popularized the phrase to recast the image of apples from an instrument for alcohol to a magical fruit that maintains health. This is the story of how a single slogan changed people's perceptions and became firmly established in culture. Today, when we bite into an apple, we are imbued with the hopes of farmers for a revival that were placed in the future by those farmers over a century ago. Only the best are displayed on the shelves. Supermarket apples teach us about modern rationality. It is said that there are thousands, some say over 7,500, varieties of apples in the world. However, we only see around 20 varieties in supermarkets. This is due to the extremely strict requirements of the modern market, durability to withstand long-distance transportation, beautiful shelf life, and a crisp texture that lasts even after months of storage. Only the elite, who overcome all these hurdles, make it to our doorstep. Behind the thousands of lost individualities, a handful of elites have been honed. The history of modern civilization's choices, pursuing efficiency and quality to the utmost, is encapsulated in each apple we choose. Discovering the lie of a perfect apple. the brilliance of a genuine apple hidden within its unassuming appearance. The secret to choosing the most delicious apple is surprisingly not judging by appearance. A glossy, symmetrical shape is sometimes merely a sign created for market convenience. A muted color, a slightly irregular shape, a subtle roughness on the surface. It is often these seemingly imperfect shapes that contain mellow nectar and a surprisingly complex aroma. If you come across a unique apple at a farm stand that no one else has picked, it is the start of an adventure that will take you to a new taste. Hidden behind the perfection is the real flavor, nurtured by the soil and sun. When you experience its imperfect individuality, your love for apples will surely grow even deeper.